And so let's sit up nice and tall. Just close the eyes. And welcome yourself to the moment. Acknowledge the presence of all that is. However the body feels in this moment, however your mind is thinking in this moment, however your heart is experiencing life in this moment. Acknowledging that. And trying not to judge anything as good or bad. And with each breath, allow yourself to come closer and closer to this present moment. So if some of those thoughts or feelings or ideas or impressions were echoes of the past, let them fall to the wayside. Let them go for now. What is actually happening in this moment? No other time, no other place. Only right here, right now. Come as close to this moment as you can. Let go of all other things. Some things won't want to leave easily. They won't want to be let go of. They want to be in the front of the mind to receive your attention. But let them know now is not the time. Continue putting off all other thoughts, ideas, and impressions that don't belong in this moment. Put them to the side and focus only on what is happening right now. This is the present moment. This is freedom. Placing the right hand onto the heart and the left hand over the right. And with a deep sense of gratitude for the potential of freedom and for the present moment, we'll lift our voices in one beautiful Om. Take a nice breath in. Bowing the head toward the heart, acknowledging all that is. Draw the face back to center, release the hands. And so, welcome. Today's topic will be freedom and the present moment and what that actually means for us. And many times we think, I really want to be free. I want to experience freedom. And so we run off to the Bahamas. Or we think freedom is some elusive creature that belongs only to others and that our life can't generate freedom because we just aren't deserving of it somehow. But both of those are not freedom. And all the in-betweens are not freedom either. You can go to Bermuda and be miserable. That's not freedom. I guess the choice to be miserable is in some way related to freedom, but you could stay here and be miserable. You can go to the Bahamas and be absolutely joyful and elated and become really tired. Go have a really good time, party hard. Yeah. That's not freedom. You can stay here and do the same thing. That's also not freedom. But if wherever you go and whatever you are doing with absolute and complete awareness, absolute and complete acceptance, absolute and complete self-responsibility, that's freedom. That's freedom. For you to be wherever you are in any given moment and recognize that that potential of freedom exists right now. And you all just had a taste of it as you were sitting, drawing yourself into this moment. As you draw yourself into this moment, we need to let go of certain things. We need to stop gripping onto what happened yesterday, the day before, last week, last month, last year, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, the last lifetime, the lifetime before that. We need to let go of these things in order to be in this present moment. Because what happened 3 lifetimes ago is really not highly relevant to what's happening right now. It happened then. There certainly may be some psycho-spiritual manifestations of shadows in this life that are related to that life, but you know, that's not the point. The point is that we suffer in this life, and in large part that suffering exists because we are constantly bringing ourselves someplace else. And if we can become skillful and masterful at drawing ourselves into this present moment, then what we find is we don't really have a need to understand 3 lifetimes ago, or 3 years ago, or 3 minutes ago. We can just be here now and recognize that all things are fluctuating. We each exist in the center of a great kaleidoscope. And we would like to believe that we are the only stable point, but we're not stable either. Everything around us is changing. All the brilliant colors are interacting with each other just like they do in the kaleidoscope. And you're in the middle. And you're potentially being twirled around like a great whirling dervish amidst all those colors and particles. And you're like landing over here, help me. And landing over here, I don't know what to do. And landing over here, oh, this is pretty. I hope it lasts. And then you're thrown over there, you know. So everything is always changing. But it is very much like a kaleidoscope. And if you can just be with the change, if you can just be with each second as it arrives and let it go as it leaves, then what you find is that your awareness, your intelligence, your intellect, your heart are far more available and open to the things that actually need your attention. 99% of what we attend to is just us keeping ourselves busy and distracted. There's probably about 1%, maybe I give it 5, I'll be generous, maybe 5% of the things that we attend to on a given day that actually need our attention. That kind of like is good for us to look at, you know, like our relationships. Our relationships can use our awareness of them. So when we're in the midst of relationship, like wouldn't it kind of suck if I was sitting here talking to you and the only thing I'm thinking about is like what happened 3 years ago? Like I'm sitting here trying to talk with you about being present, being attentive, communication, and yet I'm completely absent, you know. I mean, would that be effective for you? No, of course not. Our relationship would suffer greatly. So when we're in relationship with others, being in that moment and recognizing what is actually needed in that moment and not basing that conversation on what happened 3 years ago is very important. And it's actually a great key to healthy relationship. If we're in relationship and our awareness is coming from something that happened 3 years ago, it's not relevant to now. Not really. It may be part of a greater habitual behavior, but that doesn't mean that it's relevant to the current conversation. So what I mean by that, and everybody in this room has potentially done this at one point or another, is you're having a conversation about how somebody behaved today. Maybe they didn't pick their laundry up and put it in the laundry basket, or maybe they said something to you that was kind of off, or that you took in a harsh way, and you want to communicate about that, but the first thing that you say is, you know, for years. Or you say, when we first met, those things are not relevant anymore. For years doesn't matter. What matters is now. How things were when you first met, is not what's happening now. You can't be the same people that you were when you first met. It's not possible because you're both constantly growing and changing. So the conversation is now, in this moment, as I walk into the room and see clothes on the floor, I feel compelled to pick them up, and I feel resentful as a result of that because I don't want to spend my time picking up after another person. Is there any possible way that you could just keep things on your side of the room? And you could say it even kinder than that too. But the point is don't, you always do this. You've been doing this for 10 years, and for 10 years I've hated it. Right? I mean, how effective is that? Yes.
Using the word always and never.
Yeah, totally. Take them out of your vocabulary. Always and never are not useful words because they're not true. Nothing in our physical realm, in our physical experience, is always or never. There's always potential. That's the only time it's relevant. Potential exists. That probably is the universal. Potential exists, and potential will manifest as it's needed in any given moment. And it's not up to us, to look at something and to relegate it to always or never. It just is what it is. And if your partner doesn't put their laundry in the laundry basket, and you do put their laundry in the laundry basket, then what you need to look at is your behavior, not theirs. That your behavior is the tendency to pick up after them. Why are you doing that? If it causes resentment in your heart, why are you doing that? Because I want them to change. They are changing every day, just not in line with what you think it should be. So you can just make your needs known. And in being in the moment that way, it is so freeing because you don't have to depend upon history to prove your point. All you have to do is accept responsibility for how you want to live your life and how you perceive yourself to be able to. And if part of living your life to the level of inspiration that you are seeking includes not picking up someone else's laundry, then just don't pick up the laundry. Eventually they'll pick it up when they need a clean pair of socks, right? Eventually they'll see to it. You can let your needs or your wants be known in a kind, compassionate way, but having an attachment to the outcome of that is also a burden, not a freedom. Well, I would be so much freer if you would just pick the laundry up and put it in the laundry basket. And it's like, no, you wouldn't. Then your energy and your attention would be diverted to something else. So once the laundry's in place, then it becomes how many pencils they leave on the desk, or how they leave the door open, or leave the light on, or don't put the lid down, or do put the lid down, or whatever it is. There's always something else because nature fills up space. That's what nature does. If there is a space to be had, something will go there. I was so amazed. I walked out front the other day and I was appreciating the lilacs, the white lilacs on the front tree. And as I was standing there smelling, which was just such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful aroma, I looked down at the ground and there's all green grass everywhere. And there's some clover mixed in, a couple of violets and whatnot, And there's this one spot, which is probably about this big, the size of a small orange, not even. And it was just dirt. It was just the dirt. There was no grass there. It was a bald spot on the ground. And sure enough, that little spot got filled by a little caterpillar, a really interesting looking caterpillar of the like I have never seen before. He was black in color and had two very long antennae. His tail end was narrowed, almost like a snake's tail, and had rings around it. It was very strange. But I thought to myself, of all the places for that to go, it goes to the place where there is nothing. Because nature fills space. So if nature's tendency is to fill up spaces that exist, and your life is full of space, wouldn't you prefer to be the one having an influence in what goes there? I mean, unless you want to have a bunch of black caterpillars crawling around, Wouldn't you prefer to have your dreams, your aspirations, your intentions, your awareness, your freedom, your creativity, the work that needs to be done in order to accomplish those things? Wouldn't you prefer that to fill the space? Well, you are inherently part of nature, so you have a say in what goes into the space in your life. And that's freedom. That's freedom, to be able to choose. And inherently, every single person here and everywhere does have that freedom. But it gets covered up. It gets covered up quite a bit by woulda, coulda, shoulda, 3 years ago, 10 years ago, 3 lifetimes ago, 10 lifetimes ago, and fear of the future. And so we stop recognizing the power that we have in this moment to be influential in our own life, to choose what we want to have fill up the space. And somebody will inevitably ask, they'll inevitably say, well, but I can't control what other people bring forward. No, you're right, you can't, because that's their space. But what you can control is how much of it you permit into your space, how much of it you accept as your own burden. That is your choice always. So someone comes to you and they're angry and they're like, I'm mad at you. You stole my parking spot. Da-da-da-da-da. People become irate over things like that. And now you've got a little space. And there's a person yelling at you, violently yelling at you, calling you names even, threatening you maybe. And you can do a few things with the space that you have. You can allow that interaction to fill that space and become reactive to it. And go right back at him. Is that going to bring you happiness, freedom, peace? No. You can just listen and hold your space very firmly and with great compassionate discipline. Allow them to say what needs to be said. Recognizing that that is a great service to allow them to off-put whatever it is that they're carrying on their shoulders, because for someone to get angry over a parking space, they are carrying quite a burden in their life, for sure. So you can choose to hold the space and to allow them to say what they need to say. And then perhaps have a compassionate response. Even just acknowledging, I recognize that what I did upset you. That was not my intention. I was hurried too. I was just trying to get to where I've got to go, like you're trying to get to where you've got to go. But I'm really grateful for the opportunity to have this conversation, because it allows me to see firsthand how being hurried can cause harm. You see that? Yeah. Them yelling at you is not harmful, not really. It's up to you. It can be harmful if you let it be harmful. But your actions could be very harmful, because your actions are the only ones that you have control over. You can't stop what they do. You can only stop what you do. You can't start what they do, but you can start what you do. So they might rant, rave, whatever, and your other option would be walk away. They start screaming at you, saying things, just walk away. Don't engage. All three are very valid responses and reactions. But only 2 of them have a level of freedom to them that is meaningful to you as a spiritualist. The angry reaction is binding. Because now you go back at that person and you call them names. Maybe you even get in their face a little bit and threaten them too. Now for days, weeks, months, and maybe even years later, every time you drive into that parking lot, it will be a trauma. Because that person goes there too. And you don't even know that person, but I don't know, maybe you'll run into them again. Or maybe there's a similar car to theirs. Is that person? Are they going to hurt me? Am I going to have to hurt them? So the first reaction, which is an absolute reaction, causes a great deal of harm and burden, not freedom, because it causes you to become fearful and violent. And that is not freedom. The second one, well, let's go to the third one. The third one, just walking away and doing nothing, there's an amount of freedom there, but there's no resolution. There is an amount of freedom in being able to walk away and say, this doesn't belong to me. But there's no resolution. There's no acknowledgement that maybe, you're both looking at this parking spot, grasping at it. Maybe you did pull up a little bit faster because you saw their blinker on. Or maybe you didn't even see them. Walking away has a certain amount of freedom to it because it negates the interaction, which could potentially have some violence associated with it, violence in words, not just physical. But there is no resolution there. To stay and to hold space, that decision holds the potential for resolution. The acknowledgement of self-responsibility. The acknowledgement of harm. The acknowledgement of perception. The acknowledgement that all parties involved are responsible somehow. And can we both walk away feeling resolved? Because it's not just enough to walk away from a situation and be like, bye, sit with your own stuff. That don't belong to me, not my circus, not my monkeys. No. Because then the rest of the day, there's a part of the ego that's going back saying, that person was a jerk. I showed them. And I was right. And then you call your friend on the phone, and you're like, hey, you know what just happened to me? Can I get your input on this? I pulled into the parking lot, and it's not even accurate usually because we add a few extra details to just juice it up a little bit, And then that friend reassures us. They say, oh man, you were so right. That person must have been such a jerk, da-da-da-da-da. And you're like, thanks for listening. Thanks for holding space. And then you get off the phone and you're still mulling over it. And an hour later, or maybe 5 minutes later, you call best friend number 2, and you're like, oh man, do you know what happened? And 3 and 4 and 5. And a week later, you're pulling into that same parking lot with a friend in the car with you, and you're like, you know what happened last time I came here? So there's this trap, that happens if we walk away from the situation without resolution of some sort. And if we stay and fight and argue and interact violently. Both of those will keep us out of the present moment. They're both very valuable experiences. You can learn a lot from each one if you're paying attention. If you're paying attention on purpose, you can learn a lot about the tendency to violence, the tendency to communicate ineffectively, the tendency of the ego to rear up, on a second's notice. You can learn a lot of things from both of those reactions, but there won't be a lot of resolution. And there won't be a lot of time spent in the present moment because you'll be feeling all kinds of guilty, upset, sad, resentful, disappointed, and whatnot about what happened when that happened. But if you stay and hold space and pay attention on purpose, and if you acknowledge knowingly your role in the situation, well, I know you curse at me a lot, and I don't like that, but I really haven't held boundaries in the past. So what I need to do for myself now is I'm going to put a boundary in place, and I'm not just going to say, I would appreciate you no longer speaking to me that way, but here's what's going to happen if you do. I won't stay. Or whatever consequence it is that you feel is appropriate. And in that, you are resolving things. You're resolving perhaps a lack of healthy boundaries, resolving unclear communication, unclear direction, unclear intention. You're resolving those things to a degree. But you also have to have one more thing, and that is willpower. You need to have the willpower to follow through on the consequence. So if you have said to somebody who speaks down to you consistently that if they continue to speak to you in that way, that you will remove yourself because it's not acceptable to you, then you need to leave. Leave the room, leave the building, leave the relationship. But you need to remove yourself from that environment and show that there is a willpower in place within you that honors who you are, what your intention is, that holds your own personal freedom to a very high esteem and will not permit another person's fear to be imposed upon it by your own lack of willpower. Does that make sense? Yeah? There's freedom there. There's great freedom there. You will never find freedom by manipulating another person to behave the way you want them to. There's only freedom in you behaving the way that manifests freedom. It'd be just so easy if everybody would line up and be the way we want them to be. But it's not real. Because for them to do so would be to steal their dreams, ideas, aspirations, intentions, mistakes, and life experience for the sake of our own insecurities. And that is not freedom. Because the other thing to know about freedom is that in order for you to be free, you must also allow all others to be free. This is a major teaching in Tantra Yoga. Not the Neo-Tantra stuff that's out there in the West today, but the Tantra, the actual Tantra tradition teaches that absolute freedom is freedom absolutely. And that if you are holding another hostage to your own perceptions of them, that you are binding both yourself and them, and you're binding yourself away from freedom, not closer to it. So if you are a person who becomes aggravated at another person's behaviors, then you need to look at why. What is it about that behavior that irritates me so much? What is it about that behavior that reminds me of something in myself? That makes me fearful of something in myself? And then leave the other person alone and just tend to yourself. And if you see somebody who is, dressed all kind of crazy, hair multiple colors, side of the head shaved, mismatching socks, young person typically, because, once we get older, we get a little more fearful about what people think of us, and so we tend to dress a little differently, right? So we go up to that young person, and what we're saying to them is typically something along the lines of, you shouldn't dress like that in public, it's not appropriate. And what you forgot was that when you were 13, you did the exact same thing. And the only reason why you said that to that child was because someone said it to you. And it made you afraid to express who you are as a person. And that person is expressing so much freedom in being who they are, in dressing the way they want to dress, that it has caused you to feel resentment over your own letting go of your freedom. Do you see? Yeah. So don't ever go tell somebody they should look different, dress different, be different. Because what you're saying is, damn, someone said that to me once, and now I'm going to inflict that on someone else because it's too heavy for me to carry. Instead, say, I love your style. Even if you don't, Just be like, I appreciate your intention to have your own authenticity. Yeah, you don't have to say you like it if you don't. You just say, I appreciate your intention, your freedom to show up the way you want to show up. I tell my granddaughter all the time, she's 4, and I tell my grandson too, he's 10. I say, always remember and never forget that you are powerful. You are authentic. You are who you are. And don't ever forget who you are. Because that's just something so special. So special. But when I was their age, it was a much different time. And There were lots of adults who told me to forget who I am. There were lots of adults who told me what to be, what to become, how to think. They have the same thing today too, but it's not the same. There's a bit more mindfulness in parenting these days. There's a bit more mindfulness. There's a bit more freedom in allowing children to explore the realms of their own being. But here's the thing. You tell the child it's okay to explore the realms of their being, but you're not doing it. If you're not doing it, they're learning two things. They're learning it's okay to say, do it, but it might not be okay to do it. So in order for the child to really learn that it's okay to step into your own skin, you need to do it also. You need to be who you are. Not who you think you are, but who you really are. To be introspective, to be in the moment, to be present to what is, to attend to what needs attention, to take time to laugh and to feel freedom, to take time for silliness, to take time for inspiration, to lay out on your lawn and look up at the night sky and just be awed by it, to invite them to lay around with you and to share in that inspiration. That's freedom. That's got resolution to it. So what is most important in there are many important things, but what is very important in our human experience is to understand that we are seekers of freedom, but we are experts at bondage. And until we know the difference between seeking freedom and causing bondage, we will most often end up very tightly wound and feeling at a loss for the thing that we strive for the most. It's only through understanding our tendencies, understanding our own self on a physical, mental, emotional, psychological level that we can begin to work in those areas and adapt, adjust, and accommodate the way that we communicate with the world, the way that we walk through the world, and the way that we allow the world to bombard us, the way that we allow that to happen. It's not a popular thing to say sometimes, but being a trauma survivor myself, I have always found that my greatest moments of resiliency did not exist when I was lost in my trauma. They existed when I was healing from it. And I do not wish to be a person without resiliency. I wish to experience my own resiliency. So I have chosen in my life to heal. And that's a process. It's an ongoing process. And there's a time where we need to sit with the things that have harmed us and hurt us in this life, yes. But it's the same thing as the person who doesn't pick the laundry up off the floor. You sit with the trauma that has happened to you, sit with the echo, with the repercussions of whatever that was for you as a person, but you do not let it consume you. You don't let it eat your potential. You don't allow it to take over. And some people would say, but I'm not strong enough. And I would say, then you're looking in the wrong mirror. You're not looking in the actual mirror of yourself. You're looking in that circus mirror that distorts you. And some people would say, well, I don't know how. And I would say, there again, you are reflecting on the wrong lessons. You've been taught many things in this life. And much of what you have been taught, you can put off to the side. But there have been some valuable lessons that have taught you exactly what you need to know in order to lift yourself up from this. And some would say, but it just hurts so bad, I can't breathe. And then I would suggest, stop breathing and see what happens. You can breathe. You can, and you will, because you are alive. And the moment you try to stop breathing, she will breathe into you. The moment you try to stop it, that you say no, she'll just sit and watch you for a few moments as you go a little bit blue in the face. But then the moment that your consciousness slips from you a little bit, you will immediately start breathing again. Because you are not dead, you are alive. And living things breathe. So breathe. And if the breath is erratic because the pain is that deep, then breathe erratically. Accept it. Wrap your arms around it. Love it. Love it into a place of healing. Let it move from denial into acceptance. Does that make sense? Yeah? That's a lot for this morning, I know. But it's just so true. And if we want to experience freedom in our life, then we really do need to sit with what resonates as truth for us and stop feeding into the bullshit stories that we tell ourselves all the time. I'm not strong enough. I'm not this enough. I'm not that enough. How enough do you have to be who you are? To be really who you are? You just have to open your eyes to it. You just need to be willing to accept the freedom that exists inside of you already and allow it to manifest itself in nonviolent words and actions in ways that are conducive to your own healing. And then here's the thing, because some people would say, well, that sounds really self-centered. Then I'm just going to spend the next couple of years just being worried about myself. And, well, I thought I was supposed to be of service to humanity. I mean, that is being of service to humanity. Because you show up as a whole person instead of as this person who thinks they're fractured. So in yoga, it is self-centered first. It has to be. Because we walk through this world as violent agents of violence. And our violence can be in our word, in our intention, in our action, in whatever way it shows up. But the more that we openly and honestly interact with the reality of who we are and the freedom that is inherent in our being and the goodness that is inherent in our being, then we get to walk through the world that way. And when we walk through the world that way, we're not walking through the world trying to make everybody happy. That's not possible. What we're walking through the world and doing is not harming people. And there's a difference between I want to make you happy and I do not wish to harm you. Clear difference between those two. I want to make you happy takes me out of this present moment and puts me into something 2, 3, 4, 10, 20, 30, 50 years ago, or into a fear of the future. It does not allow me to be present in this moment. So I don't want you to be happy. I don't want to make you happy. I want you to be happy. Let me rephrase that. I would like you to be happy, but I do not want to make you happy. When I say, I would like to walk through this world and cause no harm to you, that puts me right in this moment because I have to show up. I have to know what behaviors I have a tendency toward that could harm you. How I misuse my language, how I misuse my intention, how I misuse my life. And then I need to adjust accordingly so that I can live up to that intention of no harm. That's where the greatest freedom exists, because when I don't harm you, I don't have to feel guilty. And guilty is what takes me back to the past and causes me to be afraid of the future. So if I'm investing in not harming, then I'm investing in freedom. I'm investing in not feeling guilty. In a healthy way. Not just I don't care, but in a healthy way. Do you know how much energy opens up? You're a musician. You ever play the wrong note?
I like to say no.
Has there ever been a time where you played the wrong note and it has spoiled the rest of the song?
Potentially, some years.
Yeah. In your mind, right?
And in some parts of my mind, yes.
Yeah. And so, if you had played the wrong note and just let it go, the rest of the song would be saved.
Yeah.
That's life. We all play wrong notes from time to time. Are you going to let it ruin the rest of the song? Or are you just going to recognize that the note had its own special resonance and be present for this one and everyone that follows? Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah. They were amazing yesterday. Oh, man. Oh, absolutely. My honor.
Very fun.
It was wonderful. Yeah. So many talented musicians here yesterday at the festival. And just a really wonderful experience of the music, just the sound vibrations coming together in a way that was very free and very beautiful. So what are your thoughts or questions? What are your ideas? Today's talk, pretty deep stuff. What are your reflections on that? No? Cal. Here, Cal.
What's that? So, all right. So the parking lot thing, with the three different options. How does one get better at handling when you handle it? Let's just say in the first action, and you call one of your friends, and you think you were right. But one of your friends is also doing their own work, and they view it very objectively, and they talk with you about it, and you start seeing how even though you yourself try practicing mindfulness and awareness, but you're not quite sure, so you run by one of your support people, and they lovingly let you know that, well, maybe you did play a part to soften that guilt or that shame that comes, that one more time I struggled, or one more time I failed, or whatever.
Yeah. Be grateful for that friend.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. Be grateful for that friend. And just know that we're all in process. And even though we give these examples, like the parking lot, it's not to say that any of us are going to go out and master that today. Potentially we won't. It takes time to think about these things. And be grateful for yourself. Be grateful for yourself that you called the right friend. And then listen to what's being offered and contemplate that. And maybe think for a few moments about, because we're always acting on multiple dimensions, right? So we're kind of in this present moment, and then we're in every other moment that ever was also. And we're always reflecting and learning and recalling and projecting. So since the mind does that, and it's really good at doing that, and it's not going to stop anytime soon, then we may as well use that tendency for our own betterment, for the empowerment of our own freedom. So you have two friends. You have the friend who's going to egg you on, and you have the friend who's going to tell you true. Practice making the choice to call the friend who tells you the truth. In that interaction, there is such power that it will impact the next time you're in that situation. Yeah. Because you'll think to yourself, there's a few things you could think, but you think to yourself maybe, well, as I am engaging in this conversation, I'm seeing the same tendency that was there last time. So what happens if I try something different? Let me just try this on for size. It's not hurting anybody by trying a different reaction, a different response, But maybe even before the situation starts, you can sit there as you see this person pulling into your parking spot, or as you pull into a parking spot, and ask yourself, as this person's walking up to your car yelling at you, is this person really harming me? Do I need to react to this? Is anything that they're saying really about me? And I pretty much guarantee you, nope, not harming you, what they're saying is not really about you. It's about their own hurriedness, their own aggravation, their own possession over something that's not possessible. So we look at this on two sides, that this person has their own stuff they're dealing with. And you, as potentially being the person who pulled into the parking space faster so that you could get the parking spot, you have your own stuff that you're dealing with. You're suffering together. You're both suffering. So this naturally brings us to the point of, how do we alleviate suffering? And it's not to be sarcastic or passive-aggressive or violent. It's to say, I accept self-responsibility. You know what? You're absolutely right. I did go fast because I saw you sitting there. And if you can't apologize for that, apologize if you can, but if you can't apologize for it, then maybe ask them if they want the parking spot. I'm sure the one that was right next to you is open by now. So, ask them, to resolve their anger. Accept responsibility for your behavior and let them accept responsibility for theirs. And if we behaved this way, there wouldn't be wars. But there are wars because we instigate. We say, oh yeah? Where does it say your name on this parking spot? I bet you go around to all parking lots and do this. I bet you yell at everybody. I bet they're just a bad person. We instigate. We try to bring out the badness because we are afraid of the goodness sometimes. So in the bigger picture of that, just think for a moment, what would have happened if you're coming down that aisle and there's a parking spot and this person is turning and they're going into that parking spot, so you speed up and you turn into that parking spot. Really, what would have happened if you just let them have it? Would that have hurt you in some way? No. Because there's probably a spot right over here. So why were we identifying with that one so much just because someone else wanted it? Something we need to look at. If we want to experience the freedom of less guilt in this life, less harm in this life, more peace, and more happiness.
I actually had a true experience that happened. Last year, I was coming here on a Sunday morning, and I'm coming down the hill, and I was running late, and there was a person on a bicycle. So I went into the other lane and passed him, but I was rushing, and I guess it frightened him. He followed me down into the parking lot. And I get out of my car, and he starts yelling, and I reacted in the third fashion. I just pretty much, I was befuddled. I was like, what the heck's going on? So, and he keeps shouting, you shouldn't do that when your business name is on your car. I thought, oh no, Facebook wreckage, here we go. So I came to yoga. I could not leave my mind, worrying about this. I did the yoga, wisdom circle, ate, meditated. After that, I checked my Facebook, and there it is. There it is. And I thought, oh man, here we go. And his friends, they're all jumping on. But I saw one opening. He actually commented that he wishes that he would have had more awareness of himself to not react that way. I thought, wait a minute, there is an opening. So I nicely responded back, and we actually had a decent dialogue. I did not ask him to remove it, but he did anyway. I was like, ooh. So that was a huge learning experience.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Such an alternate ending. Yeah. When you think about what the other endings could have been.
Absolutely.
Oh, sure. He would have reacted the same way, either in person or in the communication on Facebook. Right. Those reviews would have stayed there.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Wow. Right? How many of you have experienced something like that? Yeah, pretty much everybody, you know? Any other thoughts or questions or comments? No? So as always, with everything that's offered, on our Sunday mornings together, it's typically a lot of information, and you need to do what you need to do with it. But the few takeaways that we could all spend some time with, are how much responsibility do we accept for our own behavior? How much willpower do we have to truly embrace and engage the freedom and the happiness that exists within ourselves? And how much are we selling out to the story that we're not worthy, not strong enough, not this enough, not that enough? And can we shift that balance so that we're actually embracing more of the truth and less of the falseness? Can we boost our willpower to embrace the truth of our freedom? And can you just experiment with that? You don't have to get it down by tomorrow or today at 3:00. You're experimenting with it. You're walking through your life and kind of seeing, wow, how does that fit here? How can I apply that in this situation? And just by doing that, interactions become more mindful and relationships become more spacious. Because as a wonderful person once told me, I spent many years in counseling due to my childhood trauma. And I was very fortunate. I had the most wonderful counselors. I think everybody should go to counseling, okay, first of all, across the board. But to a good counselor, somebody who knows how to communicate, empowerment. And, and they were just amazing. And there were many, many things that they told me along the way that stayed with me and that I still recall today, years and years later. But a few things that stand out the most are when the phone rings, if you know who it is and you know what's waiting, why are you answering the phone? That's one thing. So you don't need to put yourself haplessly into a situation that you are not in this moment prepared to deal with. And the second thing is that you know that there is a certain amount of what we as humans would call badness in the world. And there's a lot of it. But you also know that there is a lot of goodness in the world. And you know that the world is a reflection of yourself and that you are a reflection of the world on some level. So you have the capacity for both things that are not so good and things that are very good. And you're the only one who can choose which one to embrace. So, why are you choosing that one? Why are you choosing the story that makes you smaller and less amazing? Why are you choosing the story that sets you up as a bad guy, bad girl? Why are you not embracing your own goodness? So important, so important. And then the third thing is take a breath. Take a breath. When you feel that you're getting pissed, when you feel that anger is rising up inside of you, step back. Breathe in and breathe out. And ask yourself, with eyes this red, can I possibly see clearly? And if the answer is no, then excuse yourself and say, I am not in a place to do this right now. So I am going to go over here and just sit with this for a moment until I have something useful to say. And when I think I have something useful to say, then I'll come back and ask if we can re-engage. And that works like a charm every time. At least that's my experience. I can't make guarantees or anything. So those would be the takeaways for today. And try it out. And if you are trying it out, continue. What else you gonna do? Right?
Sure.
All right. Let's sit nice and tall and close the eyes. Be your own experiment. Placing the right hand on the heart and the left hand over the right. Acknowledging the goodness within. Embracing the freedom. And knowing that you yourself are the one responsible for manifesting that in your life. So don't be afraid. Embrace. Together we'll lift our voices in one beautiful Om. Take a nice breath in. Namaste. Good to see and gather with each and every one of you this morning. I thank you. I thank our visitors for coming in today. And Dayananda will lead Kirtan now.